There was a time when walking into a local card shop felt like walking into a treasure room. Not an investment office, not a sealed product museum, not a place where every pack behind the counter felt like it needed a market analysis before you touched it. Just a card shop. You could go in, look through binders, flip through singles, dig through bulk boxes, and there were packs everywhere. Pokemon packs, Magic packs, Yu-Gi-Oh packs, random stuff you've never heard of, some weird anime girl you've never heard of, all the good stuff. And the best part was it all felt buyable. Maybe you saved up your allowance, maybe it was your birthday money, and that was the whole thing. You bought what looked cool. You traded for what you liked. You didn't need to know the population report. You didn't need to check recently sold listings. You didn't need a Discord alert to tell you when some store was restocked. You just went to the card shop, and there was stuff there. I remember buying Japanese Pokemon packs, Team Rocket stuff, old cards, random singles, and it didn't feel insane. It felt like part of the hobby. You could rip packs without thinking. Should I keep this sealed for 10 years? Or you could pull a Dark Charizard and think, oh my god, I pulled a Dark Charizard, no way! Instead of it being like, ooh, let me calculate this. Is the centering good? Ooh, maybe this will be a 9, not a 10 on a PSA. Like, we didn't do all that. It was a different world. And that's what I missed the most. Not just the prices, the feeling. The feeling that these things were made to be opened, played with, traded, carried around, and enjoyed. People used to put them in like the back of their wallet, not hoarded in closets by like grown men treating booster boxes like gold bars. Very strange. We used to just like things. I know. Every generation does this. Every generation eventually turns into the old man yelling, back in my day. But like, it really does feel like that. Like, back in my day, we used to actually play with Pokemon cards. And like, I get it. Nostalgia is a drug. But I really do think something has changed. When I was a kid, your binder wasn't a portfolio. You didn't know the prices. You didn't know all this ins and out of it. It has cards you liked. It had cards your friends traded you. It had a random Japanese card that nobody could read, but everyone thought it was cool because it was, Japanese. It had some destroyed holo that had been raw dogged in your pocket for like 6 months. And yes, we knew Charizard was like worth more. And I'm not pretending nobody cared about value. There are still people back then that cared about value. We like definitely knew some cards were better than others, but there is a huge difference between this card is rare and cool, and I need to check the marketplace, the recently sold listings, PSA population report, centering, liquidity, and whether I should hold this through the 30th anniversary celebration. It's a different illness. It's a different being. The value used to be a side effect of caring about the cards. Now, for a lot of people, the value is the entire point. And that's where it gets weird. Because once the value becomes the point, everything around the hobby starts to change. Stores change, collectors change, YouTube changes, the language changes. You stop hearing, I love this card, and you start hearing, this is undervalued asset, this is going to be the next 100x, you're all sleeping on this card. What are we, crypto? We don't need everyone saying, this is going to the moon, position accordingly. Like, this is Squirtle. Relax, it's not that serious. I'm not sure exactly when scalping became a full-time career path. People have always resold stuff. People always flipped rare things. But in my memory, one of the first times normal people really got trained to think this way was with the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Wii launched in the US in November 2006 for $250. Nintendo literally positioned it as the affordable, family-friendly console. It came with Wii Sports. It was supposed to be the console for everybody. And then nobody could get one. You had families trying to buy a bowling machine for grandma, and then suddenly they're competing with resellers. Within 36 hours of launch, eBay had logged roughly 6,600 Wii sales at an average price of $435. On launch Sunday, the average was reportedly $482, which is almost double retail pricing. And the shortage didn't just go away in a week. A year later, Wired was still writing about how hard it was to find a Wii at retail. Nintendo said it had increased monthly production from 1 million to 1.8 million units, but it still couldn't catch up. Wired had also noted eBay auctions for brand new Wiis selling for around $400 to $600. And that might sound normal now, but back then it felt insane. You weren't just buying a game console anymore. You were competing against a guy with 4 browser tabs open, a launcher outside Target. I think the Wii was one of those moments where a lot of people realized, oh, I can buy the thing everyone wants, not use it, and sell it back to them for more. And once that idea gets into the culture, it never leaves. It just moves from thing to thing. Wii, sneakers, graphics cards, PS5, Pokemon cards, Magic cards, limited edition anything. Every hobby now has a shadow hobby attached to it. The hobby is, I like Pokemon. The shadow hobby is, I like extracting money from people who like Pokemon. Pokemon was always big. I'm not trying to pretend Pokemon was some tiny underground thing. It was one of the biggest franchises on Earth when we were kids. But the card market around 2020 and 2021 was different. That was when Pokemon cards felt like they stopped mostly being a kid's thing and became content, finance, nostalgia, gambling, and collecting all melted together. Business Insider reported in 2021 that top Pokemon cards priced over $50 had risen 466%. 466%! TCG Player also told Insider it shipped over 16.2 million single Pokemon cards in 2020. And then stores got weird. Target temporarily suspended in-store sales of Pokemon and sports trading cards, citing safety concerns. That sentence alone is crazy. Target had to stop selling Pokemon cards in-store because grown adults couldn't act normal around cardboard. Imagine explaining that to a kid from 2002. Like, hey, one day you won't be able to casually buy Pokemon cards at Target because adults are treating them like a war zone. Like, it's wild. And here's the part that really annoys me. A lot of people say, well, they just need to print more. And then Pokemon Company has printed a stupid amount of cards. By March 2025, Pokemon had produced over 75 billion cards in its lifetime. Around 10.2 billion cards in fiscal year 2024 to 2025 alone. That is not a small number. That is insane. They are printing billions and billions of cards. And somehow, the stuff people actually want still gets vacuumed up instantly. It's not just demand from collectors, it's demand from collectors, players, nostalgic adults, investors, scalpers, content creators, card shops, breakers, whatnot, streamers, grading companies, Discord groups, and dudes who call every sealed product a position. This is who you're competing against. So even when the supply is massive, the behavior around the supply has changed. And that is the thing that makes the hobby feel different. The best example of this to me is Scarlet and Violet 151. This set should have been the easiest emotional layup in the world. It's the original 151 Pokemon. Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, Pikachu, Mew, Snorlax. The whole gang is here. That stuff hits every nostalgia button in my brain. That set launched September 22nd, 2023. This should have felt like being 6 years old again. Instead, it feels like opening Robin Hood with holographic frogs. The Pokemon Center exclusive 151 Elite Trainer box was listed at $60 on Pokemon Center. Now, TCG Player shows the 151 Pokemon Center box with the market price of around $1,387. With a recent sale around $1,400. A $60 box becoming a $1,300 to $1,400 box is not normal hobby behavior. And I'm not saying these cards shouldn't be valuable. I'm not saying some cards are rare. Some cards are beautiful. Some cards deserve to be this expensive and designed to be this expensive. But with 151, the whole set feels like it was designed to make people emotional. And then the market wrapped itself around that emotion like a python. It's not, I love this because it's reminding me of being a kid. It's, I need to buy this before everyone else does because it reminds everyone of being a kid. That's the difference. Nostalgia used to be a feeling. Now nostalgia is inventory. And then I saw this post that I think perfectly captures the entire thing. A vendor at a card show says a kid walked up with a whole binder of Pokemon cards he wanted to trade. That binder was sleeved, sorted, color coordinated. Every card has little stickers based on value. And on the front cover, he had a handwritten value system. And the post presents it like, The future of the hobby is bright. How nice. And I get why people would think that was wholesome. This kid is organized, the kid is smart, the kid clearly cares about the hobby. He probably worked hard on that binder. And I'm not making fun of this kid. But honestly, I find it so depressing. Because when I was a kid, my binder did not have a value chart. my binder just had cards I liked. I had the cool art page. It had like the starter Pokemon page, and then a page where I put all my holos. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. I wasn't running a tiny hedge fund out of a 3-ring binder. And again, this kid did nothing wrong. This kid is just responding to the hobby that he inherited. That's what makes it sad. The adults turned every card into a price tag, and now kids are learning the hobby through that lens. They're not just collecting, they're checking comps. They're not just trading, they're negotiating. They're not just asking, do I like this card? They're asking, what is this worth? Depressing part is, they're not wrong, because if a kid walks into a card show now without knowing values, some grown man with a table full of slabs might absolutely fleece him. So the kid has to know. He has to price everything. He has to protect himself. And that's bleak. The future of the hobby might be bright, but it also feels like the innocence got priced out. Kids are still showing up with binders, which is great. But now, the binders look less like collections and more like tiny hedge funds. Then there's stuff like this. A tweet saying, the Pokemon card market just crossed $75 billion. 6 years ago, it was under $10 billion. Collectibles are the best performing asset class of the last decade. Position accordingly. Position accordingly. About Pokemon cards. This is exactly what I mean. I don't even know if this chart is real. And honestly, that's kind of the point. The verifiable number I could find is that Pokemon has produced over 75 billion cards lifetime. That is cards printed, not necessarily market value. And there's this massive difference between 75 billion Pokemon cards exist and the Pokemon card market is worth 75 billion. Those are not the same sentence at all. But online, everything gets flattened into a hype chart, and now Pokemon gets talked about like crypto. Everything is a market, everything is an asset class, and everything is a position accordingly situation. The thing that bothers me is not that people sell cards. Like, I sell stuff too, I buy stuff, I understand markets exist, like capitalism is cool, guys, I'm cool with that. The thing that bothers me is the energy. It's the same way every hobby eventually gets surrounded by people who talk like they're managing a fund, becomes less, look at this cool thing I have, and more, here's why the sealed product will outperform the S&P 500. Again, this is Squirtle, my guy. Please just be normal. And this is not just a Pokemon problem. Magic the Gathering is interesting because, at least for me, the Magic products are usually easier to find. I can generally get Magic packs, I can walk into a store and buy something. It doesn't always feel like I'm fighting a sneaker bot just to get some cardboard. But even with Magic, I feel like some of that magic is gone. The issue with Magic is a little different. With Pokemon, the problem feels like scarcity, scalping, and investment brain rot. With Magic, the problem feels more like identity dilution. Magic used to feel like its own world, or really its own collection of worlds. Dominaria, Ravnica, Innistrad, Zendikar. These places had their own lore, their own weirdness, their own flavor. It felt insular in a good way, like you were entering Magic. Now, increasingly, it feels like every IP gets to walk into Magic wearing a little wizard hat. Lord of the Rings, Final Fantasy, Marvel, Avatar. And to be clear, I am part of this problem. I love the Lord of the Rings set. I think a Final Fantasy Magic set is cool. I also have Avatar Magic booster box to open. I understand. I get it. It makes sense why they do it. It sells, and it sells extremely well. Wizards announced that starting in 2025, New Universe Beyond booster sets would be legal in all constructed formats, basically treating them like normal Magic sets. And the money is obviously there. Polygon reported that Magic's Final Fantasy set generated over $200 million in revenue in one day, beating the record previously held by the Lord of the Rings set, which took 6 months to reach that number. And I think what bugs me is that every crossover chips away at the thing's original identity. Not because the crossover is always bad, some of them are great, but because after enough of them, the hobby starts to feel less like a world and more like a convention center. And that's the Fortnite effect. Fortnite started as a game. Now it's every game, every movie, every celebrity, every skin, every mood, everything all at once. And you know what? It works. It makes money. People like it. I'm not pretending it failed. But when everything becomes everything, it also becomes kind of nothing. Roblox has this too. You can do anything, but a lot of it feels like a cheap version of the thing it's trying to be. Everything gets flattened into content. Everything becomes a platform. Everything becomes a collab. And after a while, the original texture of the hobby gets sanded down. What I keep coming back to is that every hobby now feels like it gets sneakerheadified. And I don't mean everyone who likes sneakers is bad. There are real sneaker collectors who love design, history, athletes, colorways, all of that. But there's a specific resale culture that infects things. The drop culture, the bot culture, the cook group culture, the buy 10 and flip 9 culture. And once that culture enters a hobby, it changes the behavior of everyone else. Because even if you're just a normal person, now you have to act like them to survive. You have to know restock times, you have to join discords, you have to watch market prices, you have to pre-order immediately. You have to worry that if you wait 2 days, the thing is gone forever, or triple the price, and that is exhausting. Hobbies are supposed to be where you go to escape that kind of stuff. But now, the hobby itself has a stock ticker, and I think that's why it feels so gross. The hobby didn't become expensive just because people love it. It became expensive because people realize love is profitable. And I want to be fair here, because I know the obvious response is, dude, collectibles have always had value. Yes, they have. Comic books had value. Baseball cards had value. This is not brand new. And I'm not saying selling cards is evil. I'm not saying grading cards is evil. I'm not saying card shops are evil. I'm not even saying scalping's started yesterday. What I'm saying is the ratio feels different. The volume feels different. The speed feels different. The internet made everything instant. If a product starts heating up, everyone knows immediately. If a card spikes, everyone gets notified. If a Target restock happens, adults are there before a kid even gets out of school. And the content machine amplifies all of it. A guy opens a $500 card, the clip goes viral, and suddenly everyone thinks every pack is a lottery ticket. But most packs are not lottery tickets. Most packs are bulk. Most cards are not investments. Most sealed boxes are not retirement plans. And honestly, most hobbies are more fun when you don't treat them like a side hustle. That's the thing I miss. Not the cheap prices exactly. I do miss those. I miss not having to think this way. I miss buying a pack because the art was cool. I miss opening something without immediately wondering if I should have kept it sealed. I miss liking something without feeling like I'm late to the market. The real loss is not that old cards are expensive. Old stuff gets expensive. That happens. The real loss is that the new stuff immediately gets traded like old stuff. The moment something releases, people are already asking, is this investable? Should I keep it sealed? Will this age well? Is this underprinted? Is this the next evolving skies? And that mindset changes the way you interact with the thing. You don't open it, you preserve it. You don't play with it, you grade it. You don't collect what you like, you collect what the market says matters. And maybe I'm just getting older. But that feels sad. Because the whole point of a hobby is not optimization. The point is not maximizing expected value. The point is not squeezing every ounce of liquidity out of your childhood. The point is that something makes you happy for reasons that are hard to explain. The art is cool. The game is fun. The box looks nice. The card reminds you of being 8 years old. That should be enough. But now, that should be enough feels almost naive. Because if you don't think about the money, somebody else will. And they might buy the whole shelf before you get there. I don't think the nerd hobbies are dead. I really don't. There are still kids who love Pokemon, and there will always be kids who love Pokemon, because parents love Pokemon. There are still people who play Magic. There are still collectors who collect because they love the art. There are still card shops trying to build communities. There are still people trading because they actually want the cards. But there's this layer of resale culture sitting at the top of everything now. A layer of investor brain rot. A layer of grown adults treating Target restocks like the New York Stock Exchange. And underneath all that, the hobby is still there. It's just harder to reach. That kid with the binder is probably a real collector. He probably loves the cards. But it also feels like he inherited our broken version of the hobby. A version where every card needs a price sticker before it gets to be cool. And that's what bums me out. Because I don't want kids to grow up thinking the first question is, what is this worth? I want the first question to be, do I like this? And maybe that's corny. Maybe that's old man nostalgia. Maybe I'm just mad that I opened packs I should have kept sealed. But honestly, I think opening them was the point. I think liking things was the point. I think destroying the condition of a holographic card because you carried it around everywhere was the point. And if every hobby eventually becomes a market, then I guess the best thing you can do is be the annoying person who keeps treating it like a hobby. Buy the thing because you like it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Comment what you'd like me to talk about next. Watch my other videos. I appreciate it a lot. I'll see you next time.